But let's move on to our last Bad Batch topic, which is speculation for episode 10. Obviously, we did not see this coming at all, where Omega is returned to the Batch immediately, one episode later, which I also felt was it's going to be. I got to see how they do it because I I felt like, well, that was kind of quick and easy because the Batch don't even do anything. It's all on Omega, but at the same time, if the bounty hunters continue to be involved and we're not just getting more missions where they go hang out with Sid, then it's fine because obviously, as we said, the way the show has been set up for especially the first 8 episodes, it'd be really weird for the Batch not to have Omega with them, and because she has been the heart and soul of the show. So for that purpose alone, I'm fine with her returning to them, but we got to keep the narrative going. We got to keep the momentum going. You got to continue with the Kamino and stuff. You got to continue with Crosshair and the Imperial stuff. Crosshair, by the way, also we saw at the beginning, and he's all bandaged up, looks like Dengar. Uh, but
Crosshair is Dengar now confirmed. Nah, we've seen
yeah,
it.
uh, but yeah, he doesn't appear to have any like super life-threatening injuries, just a lot of deformities and burns. So I don't know if we can completely throw out that speculation from last week, but we at least can confirm that he's at least able to keep going. So we've got Crosshair, we've got Rampart and the Imperial stuff and Tarkin. We've got Kaminoans. We've got Cad Bane versus Finnick versus possibly Boba Fett showing up, and then the Batch going and doing stuff. And they're still talking about Sid. So what? They're going to go hang out and do more bounties. I guess, in my opinion, they should probably lay low at this point. Why go out there and do all this stuff? But we have so many things that are still there, and so please don't waste time with okay, Bad Batch has to earn more credits, because at this point there is a lot to get through. And so we still have the Raxus Prime stuff, right, that we haven't seen. I know they just dropped
Yeah.
another little mid-season trailer, but they didn't. I think most of the stuff they showed was in this episode. All the new shots with Finnick by the test tubes or whatever you want to call them, test chambers, stuff like that. That was all in this episode. So we didn't really get much information there. So we're still going in blind. I think that Raxus episode is probably next, because at this point, unless they're going to save that for the last episode, at this point, I'm honestly shocked we haven't seen that yet. But do you have any clue on what they're going to do next? Because it seemed pretty open-ended.
I don't know what to really think about. I don't really know what to think about the show anymore. I thought I had a good idea of where things were gonna go. I thought we are gonna spend a lot more time with the Bad Batch and developing them, and I think we still are. I don't think that's thrown out the window, but I think the show has smartly positioned them in a place where they're trying real hard to just handle everything being thrown at them, but they were never bred for this, right? These are the first clones other than Rex that have to like deal with things immediately. I mean, when we look at Rex, yeah, he's probably doing his own thing. Yeah, maybe he's recruiting other rogue clones. Like we've seen that figure of that clone Captain Ballast, so maybe he's doing that, sure. But Rex doesn't seem like someone who's immediately trying to do something or is immediately caught up in something. He's enjoying his MIA status, right? Killed in action, whatever. The Bad Batch, like everyone knows that they're still there, right? Crosshair's still hunting them down. So there is that whole Imperial, simple Imperial, perspective. But then Crosshair and his clones are probably gonna really start to deal with like, oh shit, we did Order 66. All right, like I think uh, I don't think they're gonna ignore how the chip kind of after Order 66 kind of wears down. Like, okay, it's not really being activated as much, and maybe the more and more that they hear about these things like Omega, and then maybe hearing about Boba as the Alpha, right? Maybe they start to realize like, hey, what are we fighting for anymore? Like, what did we really do? On the other hand, right? as simple as that could be, the Kaminoan perspective is just getting more and more intriguing as the more I ramble on about it. Like, there's so much about their prehistory that we got a huge tease for. There's so much about their willingness to like just kind of disappear, it almost feels like, and abandon things. At least that old outpost. I feel like if they were really on top of things, they would have cleaned up everything. They would have ensured that like there weren't test tubes of strange alien creatures. Or maybe they're using these things kind of like as baits and traps. I mean, there's so much of the Kaminoans there just with their old technology and their lifestyles, considering how they clone themselves and all this and that. There's the whole concept of cloning that has just been accepted, but now you're like, now we got to really consider like what did they create themselves to be who they are. I mean, there is no way at this point that clones don't have questions about their purpose, and I could see them start to, as this Nala Se Lamasu feud keeps on going and developing, that they want to go below these levels and find out more and more about what's the next phase of clones, right? Like, Nala Se really wants to create these, and Lamasu, that one thing that they seem unified about is like, we have to get Omega to create this new future investment for the Empire that they can't turn an eye away from, right? There's so many questions I feel like they're going to start to ask. I don't know how the Bad Batch really can do anything other than protect Omega and keep tabs on things and help out here and there and avoid being caught. I don't know. It seems like a lot. It seems like I have no clue where this show is going anymore. Like I said, and then now there's this whole thing about Raxus Prime, and they're going to be fighting against Imperials. Like, why are they even there? No one's hiring the Bad Batch to do this. The Bad Batch obviously are there for some reason. Rex is going to be back at some point. Like, these are guys that are caught up in their duty and their love for Omega, and everything else is kind of like, okay, we'll deal with it as it comes. But everything else is just multiplying and becoming more and more complicated. Like, come on, Cad Bane is showing up again. Fennec, she's got some weird, strange motives that we don't quite get. That Nala Se will just pay her off for. I mean, Sid. I mean, what's Sid going to do with these guys? She's not just supplier information. She said she's so willing to backstab them. I mean, yeah, I don't know where this show is going, and I feel like it's only going to keep exploding from here. Now that they've gotten Omega back, I think maybe we have a bit of a focus on all these different outside players intermingling and fighting amongst themselves for a little bit while new threats and new groups are introduced. I don't know. This is not a show that feels like it feels like a lot of how the Clone Wars was like arcs, 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 and not like one unified storyline. It feels like that level of like, oh, I don't know what's coming next, but I'm excited for it is really established in the show. But it's more because there's just so much that's being established.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think anybody who's still thinking this is a one season show, I mean, it is an almost impossible feat to finish this show with what 7 episodes left. There's no way that they finish this show in 7 episodes with all the stuff they've set up. So, but yes, I think the more you were talking about it, I think Omega honestly returning to the batch is just a way to keep them relevant because there's all the other intrigue is has nothing to do with them. It's the rise of the Empire stuff. It's the clone stuff, the interpersonal clone stuff that probably has more to do with Rex than it does with the Batch because they don't really relate to those clones and they never had their chips activate other than Wrecker and for 5 minutes. So there's that stuff. There's the Empire stuff. There's the Kaminoan stuff. There's Omega or Boba or the bounty hunters. There's all these things, and the Bats are kind of just there, and they're there to be our heroes, but they're kind of increasingly, as in the Imperial structure, they are becoming irrelevant. They're also becoming relatively secondary in this show compared to a lot of the other elements, and so It's not how I thought the show would be when they announced a Bad Batch show, but it's also endlessly more interesting and fascinating than a show where the Bad Batch just went on missions, which is what I was afraid the show was going to be when it initially was announced. So I'm completely happy with this version, but yeah, I don't know what the Bad Batch are going to be doing. Like they don't seem to have any interest, as Rex talked about, possibly, you know, trying to continue to build up this anti-imperial force. He's still a soldier. He's still doing missions, and the Bad Batch are like, no, we want to live on our own. We want to do our own thing. We were never really a part of you guys. We were the best at fighting, but nobody liked us. So we're just gonna take our little family and go over here. And they're being dragged back into this conflict. And so you even have, like I said, with Rex, the rebellion stuff too. Like he's obviously Rafa and Trace Martez. There was something there with, they're kind of an early rebellion group. We had Saw Gerrera at the beginning of the show. These people who have ideas about possibly rebelling against the Empire, people who just don't like the Empire. And then you got Rex, who's working with the Martez sisters and possibly Ahsoka and all these things. There's just a lot. There's a lot, and I think this season and these next few episodes specifically are going to be focused on Omega. What is she? Who is she? And obviously we know why she's important, but what's her purpose beyond just what's her purpose to Nala Se? Because her purpose is something else to Mala Se other than just throwaway. Because she wants her alive and she wants her safe. So what's her purpose? How is she connecting to Boba Fett and to all these other things coming? This will be bounty hunter heavy. This will be all those conflicts. I think will be relatively resolved in this season and in these next 7 episodes. But the clone stuff, I think, is going to be what is the little thread that's left for season 2. And then season 2 will get more Rex. We'll get more of those characters as we build towards what I would assume the clones are kind of going to end up becoming the first like real rebels. They're going to be the first people to really rise up at the Empire, get destroyed, and then there's the people that are left, and the Bad Batch are ultimately going to be a part of it, as we kind of speculated in the past, that they will see that common bond between the Bad Batch and the Regs grow as you start to figure out that not only were the Bad Batch outcasts, now the clones are outcasts, and they're all equally unimportant to the Empire, and we're going to see that ultimately come to a head at the end of this season. It would be my guess that's what sets us up for the rest of the series, and so I think that's a good way to end our Bad Batch discussion for the day, and that was a lengthy but like really cool discussion, honestly, because this was such a great episode. I was not expecting this to be a great episode. I was expecting it to be kind of a cut back and forth between Omega with Cad Bane being like, I wish my friends would save me, and then initially, like, exactly how this started is what I expected the whole show to be. The Bad Batch are so sad that they lost Omega and they don't know where she is, and and they want to get her back, and then Omega is like, I need my friends and I'm going to try to escape. But it turned into something way more, and it was such a great episode, and I'm really looking forward to next week now. Thanks so much for watching this segment of the Star Wars Lads podcast. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video by clicking the thumbs up button down below, and subscribe to our channel for new Star Wars content every single week. If you want to watch our full discussion, click the video on the left. Or if you want to check out one of our other awesome videos, click the video on the right.